Hi, everyone. It's Kristen. Well, it's been a week since the election, which is still technically going on. We still have not figured out the House of Representatives, who's controlling it. Thank you so much to those of you who are doing the vote curing. I know that some of our group helped to get at least one candidate over the finish line, and one, I want to say in Nevada. Possibly even two. I think today people are working on Pennsylvania. So for those of you doing the vote curing, thank you so much because as a leader of this group, I feel bad if I'm asking you to do something if I'm not doing it myself. And that's one of the things that I haven't been able to get myself to do is the phone calls. I've done everything but phone calls and door knocking. So thank you for those of you who've been able to get out of your comfort zone and do that. It makes a huge difference. And I really feel that all of the efforts we did leading up to the election, none of that was wasted. We did get a lot of Dems elected. They're going to try to hold the fort for us. They're going to try to protect us and also make change any way they can. So none of those efforts were wasted. If you're like me, if you've been doing just a lot of volunteering and a lot of activism the last few months, there was already going to be sort of a natural letdown because you go from this high level of activity and feeling like you're being useful and purposeful, and then the election gets over, and then there's kind of letdown, like, oh wow, I have to kind of reorganize my life and my thoughts. I think we were all nervous going into election, but I think a whole lot of us were shocked at the outcome. I thought I was going to be going back to my normal job as an illustrator and surface pattern designer, which is what I was learning and doing and building before this happened. I thought I was going to be crocheting and doing my gardening. And right now I feel so disconnected from those things because I am dysregulated. I think all of us are dysregulated right now. There's the shock of all the promise of Kamala just being snatched away from us. Um, And then there's the threat of what is going to happen next. It's a lot. So I want to talk about a few things here. One is I'll start with the heavy thing first, and then we'll try to get lighter because I do think there's hope. But kind of trigger warning here, though. I'm going to talk a little bit like if you have a personal history with MAGA people in your family or life, I know people have lost family and friends over this, or if you have had relationships in your past with a narcissist or have have lived or been partnered with an abuser or anything like that. The first 4 years of the Trump administration were very abusive, and we all carry some trauma with us, which is why we were so nervous, coming into this election. Um, but yeah, if you've gone through that, you've got an extra level of trauma and background that's no doubt is getting triggered right now. So I know everybody's telling you, oh, practice self-care. What does that even mean right now? We're so dysregulated. It's hard. One minute I'm crying, one minute I'm hopeful, the next minute it just we're all doing that right now. So if you have a therapist, make that call. If you don't, remember there's hotlines if you really are truly getting into trouble. Um, if you've got a friend, talk to your friend. And if you're the one that is a little more stable right now, talk to your friends and people in your community and ask them how they're doing. Especially our transgender friends, non-binary friends, people who are disabled, who are medically fragile, seniors, people who are worried about their food security. These are things that people were already dealing with in their lives, and it's suddenly gotten just this sort of mushroom cloud of despair and destruction and doom ahead of us. So we need to check on each other. So that brings me sort of to the lighter, I hope, more lighter part of my video here today is where do we go going forward? And I have been thinking all week, do I want to keep this group going? Does it make any sense? This group was, I was one of the for Harris group leaders that just fell into it organically. It was like the thing to do. Everybody was doing it. And I love this group and I've made great friends and connections here. And so what I've been thinking this week is I'm personally going to be taking some trainings. coming up the next couple days and just see what much more advanced leaders in advocacy and volunteerism and resistance, see what they can teach me and see if there is a place where I feel like my talents and my energies have a place, and in which case I'd like to take that information, and we're going to meet with the other for Harris group leaders, not all of them because there were hundreds, but a good portion of us have been in communication. And we're going to get together and see if, as a group, does it make sense for us to band together and have some sort of agenda or goals and that we give out to our individual groups. Of course, ours being the introverts, because there's going to be a role for everybody going forward. So when I know more, I will let you know. One of the agenda items for when we talk to each other, though, is our digital footprint and keeping safe online. I don't know if I'm going to keep showing you my face on these videos, even though I like this. Surprisingly, I like this as an introvert. It's been a surprise. But people are talking about going to Blue Sky or staying on Threads or not, and it's all over the place right now. I don't know where it's going to settle, but I will keep you informed. I don't want to just give up this group. I think that I would like to continue, if you would, trying to help each other. So speaking of helping each other, I've already learned this week from my research from other people who are more advanced than I that when you're trying to resist fascism or any kind of, threat, we need to do, there's four things you have to do. I'm not going to give them to you here because I'm still learning about them, but I will talk about one, which is community. And that's one word I've seen all over threads this week, is finding your community or making your community or starting a group if you're not in a group, or something where you can network, find resources to share with each other, support each other emotionally, find some joy somewhere because that's still coming in our lives. Joy is part of resistance. To help to find, like, to make safety nets and protect the vulnerable. And those of us who are introverts who especially don't like to come out of our blanket forts, part of that for most of us is going to include talking to real life people. It's going to be safer if we get into a point where our internet presence becomes a trail for bad actors to be tracing us. I don't want to go down a conspiracy theory hole and say that this is all going to be like that, but we also don't, we have to think about it, especially someone who is maybe transgender or immigrant, somebody who might be on a list. So we have to think about that. So I'm talking to, I've got a Zoom with a computer safety expert, and I'll see what I can get to you about that. But talking to people face to face, even if it's just a group of two or three or four or five people in your community, and multiply that by the millions of people that all just voted for Harris and knocked on doors and did all those things, is going to be a huge, huge thing that's going to propel us forward and keep us safe as much as possible. And while we're making these little groups on connections and community, we're going to be also including people that have not been voters in the past, because we need them to start being educated and engaged in voting and in their communities and understanding that they are not being left behind. And we're including them and we want to hear their thoughts because there's a reason people don't vote. And that's going to have to be one of the keys going forward. So we don't have to do all of this in our little group alone. For you, it could, for me even, it might be as simple as I've started a crochet group at whatever free space I can find at a community center, and I see who shows up and see if we gel. And it could be going to the what's it called, the Universal Unitarian Church, which I just put on our account the other day, which is so funny for me to advertise any kind of a church because I am very much not religious, and I explain that in my post. If you don't know about that church, though, I don't even know why they call it a church in some sense, because it is like all religions and no religions. It's basically liberal-minded people that get together. Maybe they like to sing the songs. Maybe they grew up in a church, got away from the church, but still like that routine. But they're also safe spaces. They're transgender, inclusive, and protective, as well as entire LGBTQ cute community. And I looked at my church just out of the blue, and lo and behold, they have free space in this church building that you can just, put your name on the schedule. So if you need a safe place to meet, you might look that up. They also have online services for most of these churches. And by service, yes, I guess they have a pastor, but also church members can also sign up at a lot of these places. So, like, I could lead a sermon. I think of it more as like a pep talk and an organizing kind of thing. But you got to find your community somehow, and that's hard for a lot of introverts. But I think we all can. Doesn't mean we have to, do this all in person, but it's something I think we're going to have to do. The more I've learned about this week, the more I'm realizing, yeah, I think this is something that's coming for all of us as we move forward. And it's going to be a good thing because a lot of you have told me you're lonely, even though you like to be alone, you get lonely. And when you're feeling scared and unsafe, it's better to be with someone that you can trust. And if you are someone who is worried about the big things and the necessities in life from safety to food, etc., it's going to be better if you have someone that knows about it in your life who cares about you and helps you to get resources. Okay, so this is a long video, but it's been a long week, one of the hardest weeks I can think of in my life, maybe tied with one or two other weeks. So I want you to take care. I'm not out of here at this point at all. I'm checking in with you still, and please check in with me because we have to help each other. Okay, so I love y'all. Take care.